بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. ما كان محمد أبا أحد من رجالكم ولكن رسول الله وخاتم النبيين وكان الله بكل شيء عليما. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اذكروا الله ذكرا كثيرا وسبحوه بكرة وأصيلا. هو الذي يصلي عليكم وملائكته ليخرجكم من الظلمات إلى النور وكان بالمؤمنين رحيما. تحيتهم يوم يلقونه سلام وأعد لهم أجرا كريما. يا أيها النبي إنا أرسلناك شاهدا ومبشرا ونذيرا وداعيا إلى الله بإذنه وسراجا منيرا. وبشر المؤمنين بأن لهم من الله فضلا كبيرا. ولا تطع الكافرين والمنافقين ودع أذاهم وتوكل على الله وكفى بالله وكيلا. صدق الله العظيم.
Shaykh Haroon studied, I'm just going to give a small introduction to Shaykh Haroon, inshallah. Shaykh Haroon studied Arabic for 1 year in France. Thereafter, he returned to Liverpool and studied over 10 years under the tutelage of Shaykh al-Din. In 2007, he traveled to Syria and to further his education where he studied under teachers such as Shaykh Muhammad Jama, Shaykh Muhammad Darwish and Anas al-Hibri and Shaykh Kamil. Without further ado, I will call Shaykh Haroon to come and start, inshallah.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين حمدا يوافي نعمه ويكافئ مزيده. اللهم يا ربنا لك الحمد كما ينبغي لجلال وجهك ولعظيم سلطانك. سبحانك يا مولانا لا نحصي ثناء عليك أنت كما أثنيت على نفسك. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن سيدنا ومولانا وعظيمنا وحبيبنا وقرة أعيننا محمدا عبد الله ورسوله وصفيه وخليله بلغ الرسالة وأدى الأمانة ونصح الأمة وكشف الغمة وجاهد في سبيل ربه حتى أتاه اليقين. اللهم صل وسلم على سيدنا محمد في الأولين وصل وسلم على سيدنا محمد في الآخرين وصل وسلم على سيدنا محمد في الملأ الأعلى إلى يوم الدين وصل وسلم على سيدنا محمد حتى ترث الأرض ومن عليها وأنت خير الوارثين. أما بعد، السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. The title of the talk is Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam as a mercy to humanity or the mercy to creation. Before beginning speaking about this subject, which really we can never do any justice to, We just want to remind everybody of one of the essential ahkam of this religion. One of the essential rulings of this religion, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has told us in the ayah which we'll speak about. إِنَّ اللَّهَ وَمَلَائِكَتَهُ يُصَلُّونَ عَلَى النَّبِيِّ يَا أَيُّهَا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا صَلُّوا عَلَيْهِ وَسَلِّمُوا تَسْلِيمًا. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has ordered us to send blessings and peace upon this blessed messenger, because he subhanahu wa ta'ala, he does so and the angels do so. And so whenever the name of the messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam is mentioned, it's only the bakhil who does not send blessings upon him. It's only a stingy miser who does not send blessings upon him. And the one who does not send blessings upon him whenever his name is mentioned, one who does not say Allahumma salli wa sallim ala Sayyidina Muhammad whenever his name is mentioned, the Prophet ﷺ prayed that that person be distant. He prayed that that person be distant. So whenever his name is mentioned, we send blessings upon him. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to shower his peace, his mercy, and his blessings upon this blessed messenger who was sent to us as a gift from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So bear that in mind. Whenever the nature of this lecture, and any lecture to do with Islam, and any class and any event related to our religion, it is inextricably tied into this blessed messenger. So whenever his name is mentioned, we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to send blessings down upon him. And as amongst them, Al-Qadi Iyad and others, Imam Al-Tahawi before him, they mention that in any one majlis, in any one gathering where the name of the messenger is sent or is mentioned, it's wajib every single time to do salawat upon the Prophet. Every single time, although the generality, the jumhur of the ulama, although the general body of the scholars have said it's wajib to do it once and then recommended every other time, but Imam Al-Tahawi, Al-Qadi Iyad and others have said it's wajib every single time to send blessings upon the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam whenever his name is mentioned. So do that as we go along. Whenever his name is mentioned, even if just to yourself, just remember him. And ultimately remember that's a gift from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that whenever his name, sallallahu alaihi wasallam's name is mentioned, you pray for him, but you receive from him. He doesn't receive from you, you receive from him. He sallallahu alaihi wasallam has no need for anything that he has no need for anything that you say about him, because his affair has already been taken care of by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because he said, Inna Allah wa malaikatahu yusalluna ala nabi. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, fil azal, in eternality, has been sending blessings upon him. So you and I don't need to do anything. Or, to be more correct, if you and I were never to do anything, it still wouldn't affect his maqam. It wouldn't affect his maqam. You don't raise him, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he raises you. You don't raise him, he raises you. Your maqam, why don't we raise him? Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said about him, وَرَفَعْنَا لَكَ ذِكْرَكَ. His maqam is already raised with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We've raised your remembrance. So whatever you and I say about him, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, does nothing for him. It does everything for us. So bear that in mind. And when you're sending salawat, it's actually for yourself. It's actually for yourself. Because he sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "Man salla alayya marratan wahida, sallallahu alayhi ashra marrat." That whoever sends blessings upon me once, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sends 10 blessings upon me. So whenever his name is mentioned, we will say to ourselves, or loud, the louder the better, say Allahumma salli wa sallim ala Sayyidina Muhammad every single time that his name is mentioned. What's the point of this gathering? What's the point of us speaking about the messenger? Why mention him particularly now? Why do we mention him? First of all, why mention him particularly now? Because this is the month that he sallallahu alaihi wasallam was born in. This is the month that he sallallahu alaihi wasallam was born in. Rabi' al-Awwal, a blessed month. The two great months in the year when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bestowed or granted his gifts upon this ummah. 2 great months of the year, Rabi' al-Awwal and Ramadan. And remember, wahi, revelation from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to humanity, comes in 2 forms. It comes through nubuwwah and it comes through Reciter. Revelation comes in 2 forms. It comes through prophets and it comes through revelation. Rabi' al-Awwal was the month where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent the prophets to this world. Ramadan was the month where he sent the Qur'an to this world. And there's a 6-month time gap between each one of them is perfectly located within the year. Rabi' al-Awwal is the month when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gifted to the whole of humanity Sayyidina Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, our Master Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And he is a gift that's been bestowed upon us. Because he sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, Ana rahmatun muhda. I am a mercy that's been gifted. He's a gift that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala extended to the whole of humanity. So in Rabi al-Awwal, the first great gift came from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to humanity, and he had to be the first one because the Qur'an comes to him. The Qur'an comes to him, so he had to proceed. He was the first gift that was given to humanity by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then 6 months later, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent the second gift down. The second gift down, which was the Qur'an. And that's why even when we talk about the beginning of Revelation, technically it did not start in the month of Ramadan. As Sayyidah Aisha mentioned the hadith in Bukhari, Bad al-Wahy, the very first, he said, the very first affair of the Prophet with revelation was Ru'ya Salihah, was good dreams, which used to appear, Falaq al-Subh, as clear, they would manifest as clear as daybreak, as clear as daylight. That dreams for a prophet is part of revelation. And that began 6 months before the Qur'an came to the Prophet, which coincides with what? With Rabi al-Awwal, with the month of Rabi al-Awwal. Hence the revelation actually began in Rabi al-Awwal. So this month is a month where we remember him sallallahu alaihi wasallam, because that's the beginning point, the first point where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala extends down to humanity guidance, the final form of guidance. The beginning point began in this month. And we should never be like those who claim that this month has no purpose, it has no point, that we shouldn't go to extremes, we shouldn't go to excesses. People are going to bring you hadith now and say, لا تطروني كما أطرت النصارى المسيح ابن مريم. Don't go to extremes with me, as the Christians went with the Messiah, the son of Mary. إنما أنا عبد. I am only a slave. You say he is an abd. And that's the glory of the Prophet, that's the fakhr of the Prophet, that he's Abdullah. That's the glory of the Messenger, that he's a slave of God. And we will never go to extremes with him, we will never call him God, we will never call him son of God. But after that, say whatever you want about him. As the poet said, كل مدح في النبي مقصرا وإن بالغ المثني عليه وأكثر إذا الله أثنى عليه بما هو أهله فما مقدار ما تمدح الورى. The poet, he said this. He said, every praise of the Messenger ﷺ is deficient. Every praise, whatever you say about him ﷺ, you will always fall short because you don't know his reality. لا يعرف رسول الله إلا الله. لا يعرف رسول الله إلا الله. Only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows the Messenger ﷺ. You don't know his reality. You don't know what, all you saw was a glimpse of him. And even Sahabat al-Kiram, those noble human beings that were selected to accompany him in this world, all they got was a glimpse of his reality. They never saw what he was really about. You will only ever know his reality when you see him in the next world. Then you'll begin to start to appreciate what he sallallahu alaihi wasallam is about. So whatever you say about him, you will always fall short. You will never do justice to him. And that's why Imam Busayri rahimahullah in his famous poem about the Prophet, he said, دع ما ادعته النصارى في نبيهم واحكم بما شئت مدحا فيه واحتكم وانسب إلى ذاته ما شئت من شرف وانسب إلى قدره ما شئت من عظم فإن فضل رسول الله ليس له حد فيعرض عنه ناطق بفم. He said, abandon, leave aside what the Christian claimed for their prophet. So we say, don't say that he's God or the Son of God, because God is only one. And alhamdulillah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protected the personage of the Prophet. And those who accuse Muslims of shirk, see, find me a single Muslim who deifies the Prophet. There's not a Muslim on the face of the earth who says that Muhammad is God, or the Son of God, or divine in nature. They say he has special qualities, but he told you that he has special qualities. They say he has khasa'is. Like we have, قُلْ إِنَّمَا أَنَا بَشَرٌ مِثْلُكُمْ. Say, I am only a human being like you. So finish off the ayah. يُوحَى إِلَيَّ. Once he said that, it changes his reality completely. That he's a human being like you and I, flesh and bones, absolutely. But you don't receive revelation. That changes the discussion completely. He sallallahu alaihi wasallam spoke about himself that when some of the Sahaba want to do what he was doing, Sawm al-Wisal, continuous fasts, he said, you are not like me. He said, you are not like me. He said, I spend the night with my Lord. يُطْعِمُنِي وَيَسْقِينِي. He feeds me and he gives me to drink. You are not like me. So for him, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, days and days and days would go past. without him sallallahu alaihi wasallam eating or drinking. But you and I are not allowed to do that. Because as he said, you are not like me. What does that mean? He's divine? No. He's unique, yes. He's unique, yes. Muhammadun basharun wa laysa kal bashar. Bal huwa yaqutatan wal nasu kal hajar. Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is a human being, but he's not like a human being. Bal huwa yaqutatan. He's like a precious stone. And the rest of humanity are just normal rocks and pebbles and stones. So you want to say that he's just another human being? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala elevated his rank. He's a human being, absolutely, and nobody negates that. But nobody at the same time says that he's God. Hasha wa kalla. It's impossible. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protected the personage of the Prophet ﷺ, just as he protected his personage from shaitan impersonating him. He says, وَلَا يَتَمَثَّلُ الشَّيْطَانُ بِي. The shaitan cannot take on my form. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given a ri'ayah, especially inayah for the Prophet ﷺ. He's taken particular care of protecting the nature of the Messenger ﷺ. So say whatever you want about the Messenger ﷺ. You will always fall short. Say whatever you want. دَعْمَ دَعَتْهُ النَّصَارِ فِي نَبِيِّهِمْ وَحْكُمْ بِمَا شِئْتَ مَدْهًا فِيهِ وَاحْتَكِمْ. Then Imam Busayr rahimahullah says, give him any praise that you want, but وَاحْتَكِمْ, and make sure it's appropriate for his blessed personage. وَانْصُبْ إِلَى ذَاتِهِ مَا شِئْتَ مِنْ شَرَفٍ. Attribute to his dhat, to his essence, whatever nobility you want. Say whatever you want about him, because you will always fall short. وَانْصُبْ إِلَى قَدْرِهِ مَا شِئْتَ مِنْ عِظَمٍ. And attribute to his esteem and his rank whatever greatness you want, because the rank of the Messenger, فَإِنَّ فَضْلَ رَسُولِ اللَّهِ, because the virtue of the Messenger ﷺ, لَيْسَ لَهُ حَدٌّ. There's no limits to it. There's no limits to it. Do not use your feeble mind to try and understand the Messenger. You can't understand him. Do not use your feeble mind to try and understand the Messenger. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has told you, as the poet, going back to what the poet said, he said, كُلُّ مَدْحٍ فِي النَّبِيِّ مُقَصِّرًا. Every praise about him is deficient. وَإِنْ بَالَغَ الْمُثْنِ عَلَيْهِ وَأَكْثَرًا. Even if the one praises goes to extremes in his praise, it's still going to be deficient. إِذَا اللَّهُ أَثْنَى عَلَيْهِ بِمَا هُوَ أَهْلُهُ. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has already praised him with what he's worthy of. What was the praise of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for his sallallahu alayhi wa sallam? What's the greatest praise that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala spoke about the Messenger sallallahu alayhi wa sallam? وَإِنَّكَ لَعَلَى خُلُقٍ عَظِيمٍ. وَإِنَّكَ لَعَلَى خُلُقٍ عَظِيمٍ. That you are on tremendous character. Indeed, and his tawqeed, ba'da tawqeed, you got emphasis after emphasis. وَإِنَّكَ لَعَلَى خُلُقٍ عَظِيمٍ. And in language, when we look at Arabic, ala means isti'ala. It means above. It means above. Isti'ala. As if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَإِنَّكَ فَوْقَ خُلُقٍ عَظِيمٍ. And as the great Qutb al-Muhibbin, Shaykh Abdullah Sirajuddin, as he mentioned, he said every single praise or every single praiseworthy quality became praiseworthy because he sallallahu alaihi wasallam was described by it. Not the other way around. He did not become great because he was generous. Generosity became great because he had it. Understand? لَعَلَى خُلُقٍ عَظِيمٍ. He's above, such that every single great quality emerges from him sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and we call it great because he was described it. If he sallallahu alaihi wasallam was miserly, we would praise miserliness, but he wasn't, so we speak ill of it. So we consider it blameworthy. Whatever he has by its very nature must be good, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala perfected his human nature. There's no flaws within his humanity. There's no flaws within the humanity of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So when we understand Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala praised him in that manner, إِذَا اللَّهُ أَثْنَى عَلَيْهِ بِمَا هُوَ أَهْلُهُ فَمَا مِقْدَارُ مَا تَمْدَحُ الْوَرَى. What can you say about him? There's nothing you can ever say about the Messenger that will truly fulfill and pay back what the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam is about. So understand in this month that we need to begin to know the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, because he's Azim al-Sha'n, he's Rafi' al-Sha'n. Don't have it in your mind that he was just a human being that was sent. He's not just a human being that was sent. He's a unique human being. Every single human being has been connected to this Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Not just you and I. He's our prophet, but he's the prophet of all of the prophets, and he's the prophet of all of the ummah. وَإِذَا أَخَذَ اللَّهُ مِيثَاقَ النَّبِيِّينَ لَمَا آتَيْتُكُم مِّن كِتَابٍ وَحِكْمَةٍ ثم جاءكم رسول مصدق لما معكم لتؤمنن به ولتنصرنه. Every single prophet had to take a pact with God Almighty that if he was to appear in their time, they would have to support him. They would have to believe in him and they would have to support him. Every single human being has had to believe in Muhammad Nabi Akhir al-Zaman, the prophet of the last days. So although we have a unique connection to him, he's a prophet for the whole of humanity. In an absolute sense, he's not just Nabi Akhir al-Zaman, he appeared in Akhir al-Zaman. He came within the last days, but he's not just a Nabi of the last days. His greatness extends beyond just these times. His greatness is for the whole of humanity in an absolute sense, not just from his time onwards, from Adam alayhi to the last human being. Every single human being has had a connection, but it has the possibility to connect to the Messenger. Every single prophet's greatness extends from the Messenger. So we understand, and we can speak forever about the greatness of the Prophet, but you're not going to be able to fulfill. You're not going to be able to fulfill because you don't really truly know what he's about. Like again, when we talk about the khasa'is of the Prophet, unique qualities, when we look in Sahih al-Bukhari, the Prophet, when he told him to straighten the rows, he told him to straighten the rows. He told him, straighten your rows, because he said, فَإِنِّي أَرَاكُمْ مِنْ وَرَاءِ ظَهْرِ. He said, because I can see you from behind my back. I can see you from behind my back. Bukhari, such as Ibn Hajar al-Asqalani, such as Al-Hafiz Badr-Din al-Ayn, he said he had panoramic vision. He could see in front of him and he could see behind him. That was uniquely given to the Messenger. If you want to say that's ghulu, that's excess, he said that. He said that. You cannot deny the words of the Messenger. He said, فَإِنِّي أَرَاكُمْ مِنْ وَرَاءِ ظَهْرِ. Did I see you from behind my back? So know that he's a unique human being. He's a unique human being. And he's a gift that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bestowed upon us as believers in him sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. So become acquainted with him. This is the month to begin to know him. This is a month to become acquainted with him. Beware of the warning that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave to the kuffar. أَمْ لَمْ يَعْرِفُوا رَسُولَهُمْ فَهُمْ لَهُ مُنْكِرُونَ. Do they not know their messenger? Do they not know their messenger? Such that they deny him, such that they reject him. Question for all of us. Do we know our messenger? What do we know about our messenger? What's the extent of what our knowledge of him? Can you describe what he looked like? Can you describe what he looked like? If you say it doesn't really matter because I need to follow him, say the Sahaba were overly concerned about what he looked like. Read the Shama'il Imam Tirmidhi and read the books of Hadith. They have their long descriptions of, and you had the wasafin amongst the Sahaba, Sayyidina al-Bara ibn Azib, Sayyidina Ali, Sayyidina al-Hasan. The young Sahaba would describe what the Prophet looked like. They would describe the length of the hair of the Messenger. They would describe his eyes, the shape of his eyes, his eyebrows, his beard, the length of his beard, the thickness of his beard. They would describe his head, ضخم الرأس. They would describe his shoulders. His shoulders were broad. بعيد ما بين المنكبين. His shoulders were broad. They would describe the nature of his hands and his feet. شثن الكفين والقدمين. Every single last detail of the Messenger was being described. What does that tell you? The Sahaba understood in order to follow him, you must have an attachment to the personage of the Messenger. So when you see Sayyidina Anas ibn Malik telling you that the Prophet had 14 or 17 or 20 white hairs, what does that tell you? That they were staring at the face of the Messenger. That they were staring at the face of the Messenger, counting the number of hairs he had. Counting the number of white hairs he had. They weren't just about ittiba'. They weren't just, let's see what he's doing. They were looking at his face. They were looking at his eyes. They even described some red tinge in his eyes. They described a vein that passed between his eyebrows. They described the exact shape of his eyebrows. They described his eyelashes. They described every single last detail. They described his teeth, and they said as if a light was coming out from his teeth. As if a light was coming out from his teeth. They described every single last detail. What does that tell you? They were looking at the Messenger. They knew the Messenger. So the question, أَمْ لَمْ يَعْرِفُوا رَسُولَهُ. Do you not know your Messenger? And how can you see him in a dream if you don't know what he looks like? How are you going to see him? And that should be one of the ultimate goals for every single believer in this world. We should have a passion in this world that we want to see the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. في الدنيا قبل الآخرة. But it only comes to those who have a passion for it. He sallallahu alaihi wasallam, it only comes to those who have an emotional attachment to him sallallahu alaihi wasallam. We have Imam Dar al-Hijrah. We have the Imam of Medina. We have the Imam of the city of the Masjid of the city of the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. This is Imam Malik rahimahullah. Imam of the Salaf. Imam of the Salaf. For 60 years he was the Mufti of Medina. And he was the Imam of the Masjid of the Prophet for 60 years. To the point it was said about Sayyidina Imam Malik, لا يفتى ومالك في المدينة. Nobody could pass a legal verdict. Nobody could give fatwa whilst Imam Malik was in Medina. Because he was the supreme authority in Medina. He was the Imam of the Salaf of that time. So when you now see, and this is off the subject, but when you see somebody following the Maliki madhab, praying without his hands folded, you can have no objection whatsoever to him. You should not bring Hadith al-Bukhari to him. Because Imam Malik predates Sahih al-Bukhari. He predates Sahih al-Bukhari. Imam Malik is within the golden chain of Imam al-Bukhari. The golden chain, a silsila dhahabiyya, which Imam al-Bukhari rahimahullah considers to be the strongest chain in existence, was Malik an Nafi an Ibn Umar. Was Malik Nafi from Ibn Umar. That's the strongest. So Imam Bukhari took from Imam Malik rahimahullah. So when Imam Malik wasn't folding his arms, you can't have an objection to him, because he's the Imam of the Salaf of his time in Medina. Nobody spoke in the presence of Imam Malik. Nobody in Medina could pass a verdict. So you want to have the audacity to assume that he could make blatant errors about the Sunnah, the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Safest thing for you to do is to remain silent. Why? Because the ulama mention about his ahwa, his spiritual states. He said that was a man, every single night he would see the Prophet in the sleeping state. Every single night he would see the Prophet in the sleeping state. So you want to know Sunnah? He's a man of Sunnah, because he was attached to the personage of the Messenger. Why would he see the Messenger in such a state? Because his heart had a passion for the Messenger. In his heart there was a burning passion for the Messenger. And that's what we need to ask ourselves. What's our portion of this passion? Do we genuinely have a passion for the Messenger? Do we really have a yearning to see the Messenger? Are we those, as comes in the Hadith of Sahih Bukhari, مَنْ رَآنِ فِي الْمَنَامِ فَسَيَرَانِ فِي الْيَقَظَةِ وَلَا يَتَمَثَّلِ الشَّيْطَانُ بِي. Whoever sees me in a sleeping state will see me in a waking state. Will see me in a waking state. Don't deny those who experience these matters, because the Prophet spoke about these matters. But what does that require? It requires you have an attachment to the Messenger, in a real sense, in a complete sense, which begins with a passion in the heart, a yearning in the heart, which is personified by the Hadith in al-Bukhari. لا يؤمن أحدكم حتى أكون أحب إليه من والده وولده والناس أجمعين. And in reality, none of us have that. النبي أولى بالمؤمنين من أنفسهم. None of us have that. None of us have that. So we can't be critical of those who have that. We can't speak. We should be more critical about ourselves. He sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, none of you have real faith until I am more beloved to him than his children, his parents, and the whole of humanity. Nobody will forego their parents and their children and the whole of humanity for the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam now. Nobody will give up the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam in that manner. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, النبي أولى بالمؤمنين من أنفسهم. The Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam more worthy for the believers than their own selves. And you should be willing to give your life for the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. You should be willing to give your life for the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, not as just some words. If the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam is spoken about and in a negative manner, you should be there to defend the honour of the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Because that's worse than somebody insulting your own father and mother. Somebody insulting your father and mother, you should let go of that. Definitely if they insult you, let go of that. That's people just speaking. But when they insult the Messenger, you don't remain silent, because he's more to you than your own self, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said. If you look at the adab that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala teaches in the Qur'an, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala teaches an adab in the Qur'an. If you look at Surah Al-Kawthar and Surah Al-Ikhlas, both of them have a similar theme. What Surah Al-Kawthar is a response to? they accused or they tried to belittle the messenger by saying al-abtar, that he couldn't have male children. Although, where was the fakhr? And uniquely, there's another of the khasais of the Prophet, another thing unique about the messenger, that his nasab went through his daughter Sayyidah Fatima. Uniquely for no other human being is their lineage preserved and transmitted through a woman, through the daughter, except for he sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protected. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did that for a reason. ما كان محمد أبا أحد من رجالكم ولكن رسول الله وخاتم النبيين. That's for Khatm al-Nubuwwah, that there were no male offspring of the Prophet. To preserve the finality of the messenger, no male offspring of the Prophet. It goes through females, uniquely for him. But they insulted him by that, and it was considered an insult amongst the Arabs, or it was considered to be a blemish amongst the Arabs, that a person didn't have male offspring. So they called him Abtar. But what did they do to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? They insulted him in the opposite manner by saying that he has offspring. By saying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has children, the Son of God. So the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, they insulted and tried to insult him by saying he doesn't have male children. They insulted Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala by saying he has male children. And these two surahs are direct responses in both cases. Surah Al-Kawthar is responding to those who insulted the messenger by saying he doesn't have. But what happens there? There's no qul. It's not qul, inna a'tainaka al-kawthar. Whereas Surah Al-Ikhlas, it's qul, huwallahu ahad. And here, the Mufassirin, such as Fakhruddin al-Razi and others, they've taken a rule out of this. They say, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was insulted by saying he had a son, he left it to the Prophet to defend him. Qul huwallahu ahad. You tell them that he's one, that he's one. But when he sallallahu alaihi wasallam was insulted, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not tell him, you say this. He says it on his behalf. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala responds on behalf of the messenger. What's the adab we take from this? What's the etiquette? When somebody speaks against you, let other people defend. Let Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala defend. Don't you start going crazy at that point. Leave it to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But when the messenger is spoken against, you defend his honor. You defend the honor of the messenger. So know this messenger. Become acquainted with this messenger. This is a month to become acquainted with this messenger. Don't be like these crazy Muslims now who've detached themselves from the messenger. And find it as a source of pride that this month where he came into being is not significant. Some will take it as a source of pride that the month that he came into being is not significant. We say he sallallahu alaihi wasallam was rahmatun muhda. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave him as a gift. When a gift comes to you, be happy about it. When a gift is given to you, be happy about it. And bear in mind, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told you to rejoice about this gift. He said, فَبِذَلِكَ فَلْيَفْرَحُوا. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, قُلْ بِفَضْلِ اللَّهِ وَبِرَحْمَتِهِ فَبِذَلِكَ فَلْيَفْرَحُوا هُوَ خَيْرٌ مِمَّا يَجْمَعُونَ. Say, by the grace of God, or for the grace of God, and for His mercy, فَبِذَلِكَ فَلْيَفْرَحُوا. Because of this, rejoice, be happy. When you see people now increasing in their remembrance of the messenger, what are they doing? They're not deifying the messenger. That's some warped understanding you have in your mind. What are they doing? They're fulfilling the order of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We said, فَلْيَفْرَحُوا. We said, rejoice, be happy. The messenger came this month. What happens now? When on the day of the birth of the messenger, you increase now in emotions towards him. You increase in emotions towards him. You feel that something special is about to happen. That this is a special day. This is where the hidayah of humanity began. This is where the guidance of humanity began. If you've got in your mind that there's nothing special about this, say, you're ba'eed kull al-bu'd min al-nabi. You're completely distant from the Prophet. And our concern is what caused that distance. Because qurb wal-bu'd min al-nabi wa min Allah ta'ala is because of your spiritual states. If you're close to the messenger, it's because of your attachment to the messenger. If you're distant from him, the messenger, it's because of the lack of attachment to the messenger. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has told us to rejoice because of this gift that's been bestowed upon us from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And likewise, when you read Surah Maryam, and to say that this month is nothing, rather we should rejoice in this month. We should feel happy that we're part of this messenger, that we have an ittisal ma'an Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that we have a direct connection to the messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Look at the beginning of Surah Maryam. Surah Maryam alayhi salam is a surah where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala rejects or refutes the accusations of the Christians. A direct address to the Christians, which is why the surah is named after a woman, and she's the only woman alayhi salam who's named directly in the Qur'an. No other woman is mentioned by name in the Qur'an, because the nature of women is satr, masturat. The nature of women is to be concealed. Women cover themselves. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala teaches that adab in the Qur'an, that not a single woman is dressed by her name in the Qur'an, illa Sayyidah Maryam alayhi salam, except for Maryam alayhi salam. Why is that the case? Why is she being addressed by name? To reject the claim of the Christians who said that Isa alayhi salam is the son of God. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ties his lineage to his mother, saying that there is no father that's involved in this. No human father, no divine father. No father whatsoever is involved. So the name of Maryam alayhi salam is mentioned. Direct refutation of the Christians. But how does the surah begin? It begins by mentioning two miraculous births. Two miraculous births are mentioned in Surah Maryam. The first miraculous birth is the birth of Sayyidina Zakaria or Sayyidina Yahya alayhi salam. What was miraculous about? Miraculous wasn't just Isa alayhi salam. Even Sayyidina Yahya alayhi salam was a miraculous birth, because he's ajuz and the wife is aqir. Ajuz. Zakaria alayhi salam is an old man, can't have children. He's an old man. His wife can't have children. So when he's in the temple and he's observing the Sayyidina Maryam alayhi salam's got a plate of fruit out of season on the table, he says to her, "Anna laki hada? Where'd you get this from?" قالت هو من عند الله. She said it's from God. إن الله يرزق من يشاء بغير حساب. Then it says هنالك دعا زكريا ربه. There and then at that place, Zakaria alayhi salam made dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Why? Because he understood that he always wanted a son, he always wanted a child. And he understood, if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give fruit out of season, then the fruit of the loin, he could give out of season as well. He could give out of season. Out of season, old man and woman, doesn't matter. The qudr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, إِنَّ اللَّهَ يَرْزُقُ مَنْ يَشَاءُ بِغَيْرِ حِسَابٍ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala provides for whoever he wants without any account, without any limit. So he made dua and he was granted. And the shock, Zakaria alayhi salam was shocked by this. When the angel comes and tells him that I give you glad tidings, the son's name is Yahya. He says, how can I have a son? How can I have a son? Even to the point where he's surprised by the fact that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala responds. Miraculous birth is mentioned. And then the second miraculous birth is mentioned. Isa alayhi salam, which is more miraculous because it's completely eliminated one of the two parts, which is the father. But what does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala say in relation to both? Yahya alayhi salam, he said, وَالسَّلَامُ عَلَيْهِ يَوْمَ وُلِدَ وَيَوْمَ يَمُوتُ وَيَوْمَ يُبْعَثُ حَيًّا. And about Isa alayhi salam, he says, على لسان عيسى عليه السلام والسلام علي يوم ولدت ويوم أموت ويوم أبعث حيا. Both of them, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says about Yahya alayhi salam, peace be upon him on the day he was born, on the day that he dies, and on the day he will be resurrected on the day of judgment. And then Isa alayhi salam says about himself, peace be upon me on the day I was born, on the day that I will die, and in the second coming when he comes the second time, when he dies a natural death, and on the day that I will be resurrected. And Yawm al-Qiyamah. And what happens here? Both of these births, two great prophets of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Sayyidina Yahya and Sayyidina Isa alayhi salam, that the Prophet met them together on the night journey. He met them together in the same heaven. He meets them on the second heaven. He meets Sayyidina Isa and Sayyidina Yahya alayhi salam. What happens here? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, peace be upon them on the day that they were born, and on the day that they will die. On the day that they were born, on the day that they will die. So we say, peace be upon our Prophet on the day that he was born, and on the day that he will die, or that he died. Peace be upon our Prophet. And again here, people have an ishkar, people have a problem. The day he was born is the same day as he died. Say, and what's the problem? What's the problem? And why do you remember him on that day? He ﷺ told us, Hayati khayrun lakum wa mamati khayrun lakum. That my life is good for you, my death is good for you. So we say the day he passed away is a good day for us. Because it was وَالسَّلَامُ عَلَيَّ يَوْمَ وُلِدْتُ وَيَوْمَ أَمُوتُ. Salam is on the day he was born, and the salam is also on the day that he passed away. Likewise with him sallallahu alaihi wasallam, we don't go into grief about the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, because he's with us whether he's in this world or whether he's in the next world. He's not disconnected from us when he's in the barzakh. He's with us whilst he was in this world, and he's with us whilst he was in the next world. So we rejoice on the day that he came into this world and the day that he left this world. It's all khair. The affair of the believer with the Prophet ﷺ is all good. There's nothing that's negative about our relationship with the Prophet ﷺ. So we understand from the Qur'an that we should be happy in the time when the Prophet ﷺ was born. And people who don't have that happiness, they say there's some detachment from the messenger there that should concern that person. But more importantly, and we have it direct in the hadith, the Prophet ﷺ, he said in the hadith in Sahih Muslim, he said, fast on a Monday, because the Qur'an was revealed to me on a Monday and I was born on a Monday. And this is Shaykh al-Islam Ibn Hajar al-Asqalani rahimahullah in his Fath al-Bari says is the strongest dalil, strongest evidence for the validity of rejoicing about the birth of the Messenger ﷺ. Because the fast on a Monday, when you fast on a Monday, make niyyah that I'm doing this. Every single Monday, make niyyah that I'm doing this because I'm happy that the Messenger was born on this day. That's what the Messenger ﷺ told you to do. Like, don't be shy, don't be embarrassed about it, don't let people put you off about it. He ﷺ came into this world on a Monday, so every single Monday is blessed. Every single Monday is blessed. And he told you to rejoice how? By fasting. By observing an act of worship in relation to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Shukran lillahi ta'ala. Shukran lillahi ta'ala. Out of thanks for this great messenger sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. So we understand from the Qur'an and Sunnah that this becomes now a way of connecting to the messenger sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. What we should all now ask ourselves in this month, what do we do now? What do we do? How do we connect to this messenger sallallahu alayhi wa sallam this month? The way you do it can differ. The way you do it, that's completely down to you, but ensure that you have a connection with the Messenger. Ensure that you have a connection with the Messenger. Don't let this month pass as if it's adi, as if it's just another month. Don't let it pass as if it's insignificant. Make sure you have a connection to the Messenger. Like then we look now, how do we connect to the Messenger? There's different ways we connect in this month. There's different ways we connect in this month. Some will rejoice by having gatherings where they'll celebrate the praise of the Messenger. We say that's blessed to do. And people should do that. People should do that because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does it. And the angels do it. They praise the Messenger. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has always been praising the Messenger. If you were to move into the Malakut, all you would ever see is just the name of the Messenger everywhere around. Jannah, all you see is the name of the Messenger everywhere around. It's all just a manifestation of greatness of the Messenger. So when you now gather together every single day in this month, which is how it should be, shouldn't just be on one day, every single day, and not just in this month, every single day you should be remembering the Messenger. If you understood the gift that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bestowed upon you, we say it's a deviant error upon your part just to remember him on one single day. It's a serious error on your part to remember him on one single day. Remember him as often as possible, remember him as regular as possible, don't just restrict it to one day. Every single day in your house you should be reading Seerah of the Prophet. Become completely acquainted with him. You should be reading description of the Prophet. You should become aware of him so you do ta'zeem of the Prophet. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told you to honour the Prophet. He said, "Tu'azziruhu wa tuwaqqiruhu." And we sent you as a warner and as a guide so that they will venerate you, so that they will honour you. So you should honour the Messenger every single day, not waiting once a year for his birth to come. Every single moment should be happiness for the Messenger. And if you don't have that, then be concerned about that. If you don't have that, be concerned about that. So those who do it, you say Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does it. He praises the Messenger. He sings praises the Messenger. The angels do it. They sing praise of the Messenger. The prophets do it. Sayyidina Adam a.s. was forgiven for what he did because he mentioned the name of Muhammad. As comes in sound hadith, he was forgiven for eating from the tree because he mentioned the name of Muhammad. And that's why Sayyidina Imam Malik rahimahullah, when he was asked by the Khalifa of his time, when I stand and visit the Rawdah, the blessed grave of the Messenger, should I face the grave or should I face the Qibla? Because whichever way you're facing, you're giving your back to the other one. If you face the Qibla, you're giving your back to the Messenger. If you face the Messenger, you give your back to the Qibla. Which way should you face? Imam Malik rahimahullah says, how could you not face the Messenger? How could you not face the Messenger? When he was the cause of the salvation of your father Adam alayhi salam. And he will be the cause of your salvation on the day of judgment. How can you not? How are you going to give your back to the Messenger? Who has such a rank with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that he forgave his father Adam alayhi salam. And he will be the cause of your forgiveness with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on the day of judgment. Why? Because he's Shafi' al-Muthnibin. He's the intercessor of sinners, and we're all sinners. Everybody after prophets are sinners. So he's going to be Shafi' al-Muthnibin. We're all sinners. We all commit crimes against Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He sallallahu alayhi wa sallam will intercede on our behalf with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So ask yourself this question now. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the angels, likewise the prophets, they're all remembering the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. They told their people about him. So what are you doing? Even going to the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he was doing it himself. He's sitting in one of the streets of Medina. Ana Muhammad. Ana Ahmed. Ana Nabiyyu al-Rahman. Ana Nabiyyu al-Malahim. Ana al-Muqaffir. Ana al-Hashir. What's he telling you? He's telling you about himself. He's speaking about himself. He's sitting down. He's telling you that I am Muhammad. I'm the one who receives all praise. I am Ahmed. I'm the one who gives out all praise to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I am the Prophet of mercy. I am the Prophet of mercy. I am the Prophet of great wars. I am the Prophet at whose feet the whole of humanity will be gathered. I am the Prophet who comes at the end of all prophets. He's telling you about himself. So when you gather together, speak about the Messenger, sing about the Messenger, praise the Messenger. All you're doing is following the footsteps of the Messenger. One time he's sitting with a group of Sahaba and he picks up a piece of meat and he bites into it. And then he stops and all the Sahaba is silent in a state of reverence listening to him with their heads lowered in front of the Messenger. And what's he say? He said, Ana Sayyidu waladi Adam wa la fakhr. I am the master of all humanity without any boast. And la fakhr can mean two things here. La fakhr can mean la aftakhir or la fakhr a'la minhu. And he said the second one is more appropriate with the Messenger because we cannot conceive that he would be arrogant. He said, I am the master of all humanity without any boast. We're saying we would never imagine him to boast. How could he boast? He's pure. He doesn't have any disease within him. How could he boast? So what's more appropriate here? There's no boast greater than this one. La fakhra a'la min hada. And he says, Adam and all those who come after him will be beneath my banner on the day of judgment. Adam and all those who come after will be beneath my banner. He sallallahu alayhi wa sallam will be carrying liwa al-hamd, the banner of praise on the day of judgment. He's telling his Sahaba about this. So he said, gather together and just tell people about him. Just copy what the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam did. There's no issue with it. Sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam to speak about him. So let's speak about him, especially in the month where we need to be connected to the Messenger sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. He then continued by saying, he's saying, I am the first one for whom the earth will be opened up. Wala fakhr. And there's no boast greater than this. I am the first one. I will be at the doors of Jannah. And I will knock on the door of Jannah. And they will be asked, who is it? And he says, Muhammad. And you say, Muhammad. And he said, I was ordered not to open this door for anybody other than you. Wala fakhr. And I'm not boasting. And there's no boast greater than this. He sallallahu alayhi wa sallam was telling you about himself. So tell yourself about him. And tell others about him. Don't hold back about the Messenger sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. He's azim al-sha'n. He's great with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وَرَفَعْنَا لَكَ ذِكْرًا. We've raised your remembrance. Ibn Abbas radhiyallahu anhu, he said, he says the meaning of وَرَفَعْنَا لَكَ ذِكْرًا is كُلَّمَا ذُكِرْتُ ذُكِرْتَ مَعِي. Whenever I'm mentioned, you're mentioned with me. Whenever I'm mentioned, you're mentioned with me. There's no place where you mention Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala except for you mention the Messenger sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. So he's azim al-sha'n. He's great with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Remember, he's great with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He's not great because of you and I. We only have a greatness because we're connected to him sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. So take that connection. And to finish with a brief story here, like what do we take out of the Messenger sallallahu alayhi wa sallam? We must connect to him in every single way possible. Every single way possible. Learn who he is first and foremost. And take this month that you should have halaqat of shama'il and seerah across the houses of the Muslims, across the houses and the masajid, the mosque of Muslim. You should have gatherings in this month where people become acquainted with the Messenger, where they become to know the Messenger, because people don't know the Messenger. If I was to do a straw poll in here and say, describe what he looked like, people would fail. Unfortunately, most people would fail. You don't even know what your Messenger looked like. And you profess this love and attachment, but you don't know what he looks like. That's not how the Sahaba were. They knew exactly what he looked like, and they transmitted that knowledge to those who hadn't seen the Messenger. One of the Tabi'een, he says that I met Abu Tufail al-Dusi radiallahu anhu, and then he says an important word, and he said he was the last person on the face of the earth who had seen the Messenger. The last Sahabi, Sayyidina Abu Tufail, said, I met him. He said, and I asked him a question. If it was us, we're going to ask him about Aqeedah and Fiqh, and we're going to ask him all of these pointless questions. What does he ask? Sif lana Rasulullah. Tell me what he looks like. People are going to get obsessed about all these technical discussions. All this Tabi'i wants to know is, what did the Messenger look like? What did he look like? What's that tell you? It tells you where his heart was at. It tells you what his passion was. It tells you who he truly loved. And you are with those, you'll be resurrected with those that you love. Anta ma'a man ahbabt, as the Prophet said, you'll be with those that you love. So we have an example, the great man of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the great wali of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Abu Yazid al-Bistami. When he's young, becoming close to bulugh, as he's coming close to being an adult, he says to his mother that how do I become a man? How do I become a man? What's a sign of being a man? The fuqaha are going to tell you signs. The fuqaha, the jurists will tell you signs, but he wants the real sign of manhood. Not the fact that your body starts changing and so on. He wants the real sign of manhood. She says you have to see the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. You have to see the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Only then are you a man. Great men, great people are produced by great women. As she's inculcated in his heart this complete attachment to the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, says you have to see the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He asks, how do I do that? She says, follow his sunnah. Call people to his sunnah. Send excessive salawat upon him. Send so much blessings upon him, as often as possible, then you will see him. A while later he comes back and he says, I'm a man. He says, I'm a man. Abu Yazid al-Bastami says, I'm a man. He says, why? His mother says, why? He said, I've seen the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He said, in a waking state or in a sleeping state? He said, in a sleeping state. I was asleep and I saw the Messenger. He said, old women see the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam in a sleeping state. Old women, everybody sees the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam in a sleeping state. And now is in those times. Old women see the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam in a sleeping state. So he said, what? He says then, what do I need to be a man? He says, only when you've seen him in a waking state are you really a man. As comes in the hadith we mentioned, من رآني في المنام فسيراني في اليقظة. The Prophet said in the hadith in Sahih Bukhari, whoever sees me in a sleeping state will see me in a waking state. Now, and here, many of the ulama said literally means waking state in this dunya, before the next world. So he says, how am I going to do that? He said, carry on doing what you're doing. Carry on doing what you're doing. So a while later he comes back. He comes back and says, I'm a man. He says, what have you done? I've seen the Prophet in a waking state. She says, now you've begun to walk the first steps in being a man. What's Kamil of Rujula? According to these words, what's the perfection of being a human being? Is that you are able to see the Messenger in a waking state. Before that, prior to that, there's nothing. But how did he attain that rank? Absolute ittisal ma'an Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And then the last point, Sayyidah Rabi al-Adawiyya, the great woman of Islam. The great woman of Islam. Sayyidina Abu Yazid al-Bistami, the great man of Islam. Sayyidah Rabi al-Adawiyya, the great woman of Islam. And here in this month, we've already mentioned that you must do salawat upon the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. You must send blessings upon him. And he sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, the closest ones to me on the day of judgment are those who send the most blessings upon me. And the ulama differ here, what's it mean the most? What's it mean to send a lot? Minimum 300 a day. which is qaleel, which is a little. In relation to what he's done for you, it's little. You've not repaid anything back to him, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So at least 300 a day. And then he said on a Friday, increase it. He said, أكثروا من الصلاة والسلام عليه. On a Friday, do more. When he says do more, it means every single day you're already doing some. You're already doing some. Now, so what's more? Like on Friday you do 1,000 because he's Sayyid al-Ayyam, he's Sayyid al-Anam, and that's Sayyid al-Ayyam. As Ibn Qayyim al-Jawzi, he says, why do we increase on this day? Because he's the master of all creation, and that's the master of all days. And all of the virtues and merits of that day we know through him, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So we increase in our gratitude to him, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, on that day. What's Rabi al-Adawiyya do? If you're not doing 100, 200, 300 a day, ba'id an Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam, you're distant. Rabi al-Awwal, and one of our teachers, 10,000 in this month that you must have sent. 10,000 in this month you must have sent. Because this is the month of the messenger. 10,000 in this month you must send. And that's qaleel. And that's little in relation to the messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. In relation to what he's done for you and I, 10,000 is absolutely nothing to repay the favours that he's done for us. Look at this great woman of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Rabi al-Adawiyya. Rabi al-Adawiyya. What did she do? 50,000 salawat a day. 50,000 a day upon the Prophet. She understood his maqam. And when she was asked, why do you do so much? He said, because I want him to boast on the day of judgment that there's a woman in my ummah who sends 50,000 salawat upon me. All her concern was him, not her. She was only concerned about him. She wanted fakhr to be for him, although in reality, he has that anyway. He has that anyway. Whatever we do for him, he's already great with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He doesn't need anything from us. It's all one way. We receive from him. We don't benefit him in any way whatsoever. In any way whatsoever. All the benefit comes from us. So do what the mother of Abu Yazid al-Bastami told him. Look in this month, what do we know about the messenger? And become acquainted with the messenger. Don't be people who argue about the messenger. Don't be people who drive people away from the messenger. People don't know, Muslims and non-Muslims don't know who Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is. Particularly non-Muslims. When they insult Muhammad, they insult you. They don't insult Muhammad because they don't know him. We haven't told them who he is. If they knew him, they wouldn't insult him. If they knew his khuluq, if they knew his character, they wouldn't say a word against him. They would just start making up lies against him. But when they insult him, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, they're insulting you and I. Because we showed them what they assume Muhammad is. And then Muslims don't know Muhammad. Muslims don't know who this messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam is. So our concern in this month is so that people get to know him. Our concern in this month is to increase in sending blessings upon him and make that our known. Our concern in this month is to try and learn the sunnahs of the Prophet and try and activate sunnahs of the Prophet in our lives. Any sunnah, whatever it is, because anything that he did is not insignificant. Whatever he did, from the way that he walked and he spoke and he talked and whatever he did, the way he dressed, although these are not sunnah tashri'ah, although there's no legal requirement that you dress in a certain way, that you walk in a certain way, these were adat al-qawm, these were the practices of his people. He dressed in a way because his people dressed that way, he changed it, he kept his hair in a certain way, but if you have an attachment to him sallallahu alaihi wasallam, you'll do whatever he did. You'll do absolutely whatever he sallallahu alaihi wasallam did. So increase your knowledge of him, increase your attachment to him, and by that, he will be your shafi' on the Yawm al-Qiyamah. Walhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wa sallallahu ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi. No, that's not what we're talking about. We're not talking about praying, we're talking about making dua and sending salams upon the Prophet. We're not talking about praying too. And Imam Malik wasn't a mushrik, he wouldn't, Imam Malik would never have told you to do something that was incorrect. He was not honest. What does the Prophet ﷺ look like? In the descriptions, we have different descriptions that come predominantly in the Shama'il al-Tirmidhi, more than 16 hadith that come fi sifati khalqi Rasulillah ﷺ, describing what he actually looked like. Generally the description that was mentioned began upwards, downwards. Generally they mentioned the hair of the Prophet ﷺ, the length, you had lemma, you had wafra, and you had jimma. 3 different hair lengths of the Prophet ﷺ. Generally it was to the earlobes, the hair. His hair was neither, as the Rawi, as the narration mentioned, it was neither completely straight, nor was it completely curled. It was in between, it was wavy hair that went to his earlobes. Originally he was parted at the centre, but later on he just combed it back. His hair was oily, as he mentioned, like a zayyat, like he had the hair, like the Prophet would wear, underneath his turban, he would wear a cloth that would be covered in oil because the oil that he wore on his hair. He had a broad forehead, ضخم الرأس, his head was large as well. His height, ليس بالطويل البائن ولا بالقصير الممغط. He was not exceedingly tall like Sayyidina Umar radhiyallahu anhu, nor was exceedingly short like Sayyidina Abdullah ibn Mas'ud radhiyallahu anhu. He was كان ربعة من القوم. That's how they describe him, that he was of average height. But at the same time, ضخم الرأس, and ضخم الرأس, large head, indicated قوي العقل, that his mind was powerful, that the mind of the Prophet was powerful. Then when they described the face, the beautiful face of the Messenger, they compared it to the moon. They compared it to the beauty of the Badr, of the new moon, of the full moon. And when they described it, they said that he had rounded, or kalqaus, and his eyebrows were rounded, but they didn't meet exactly at the center. There was a slight gap in between the 2 eyebrows. His eyes were large. His eyes were large. The blackness in the eyes were clear, and likewise the whiteness of the eyes were clear. He had a straight nose. He had a large mouth. His face was not, and he had no fat on him. He was not fat, although he had a lot of physical strength. Likewise his face, it wasn't completely rounded, but it wasn't completely flat. There was shape min al-tadwir. There was a slight rounding within his face. His beard was full, it went down to his chest. His beard was full, it went down to his chest, and it was rounded. The colour of his skin, ليس بالأبيض الأمهق. He was not pasty white, he was not completely white. But they mentioned he was mushrabun fi humra. There was slight reddiness within his face. When he travelled, his face would turn brown. His face tanned when he travelled. That was the face of the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. When they described the body of the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, all of the description indicated immense strength of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. That his physical body, ba'id ma bayn al-mankibayn, that his shoulders were broad, which indicates a generous power, but also generosity of the chest. When they mentioned the hair on the body of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said, "Kana ajrad du masruba." That he was hairless. The only hair that he had on his body was a fine line of hair that ran down from his chest to his navel, and some hair on his legs and some hair on his arms. But the main was a fine line of hair that ran down. And when they mentioned the feet of the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam and the hands, they said they were powerful hands. They were fleshy, but they were not like fatty. They were not flabby. They were fleshy. And he sallallahu alaihi wasallam, on his, everybody has like a slight ridge underneath their feet, but he sallallahu alaihi wasallam, his feet was completely flat. His feet was completely flat. That was a description of how the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam looked like. Allah. We'll make sure everybody reads about that. Read about that. Become acquainted with what he looks like. Yeah.
When you mentioned about how Prophet looks like, Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam looks like, I just want to know that why not people in that time don't visualize them on a paper, like I don't know, it's called that. It is forbidden to make a picture of him, sort of thing. And also, how do people get into the state of yaqeen?
So I didn't understand the first part.
No, I mean it's about why don't people like draw, make a drawing on his face, that sort of thing. Right. And also, how do people get into the state of yaqeen when they meet Rasulullah during dreaming, that sort of thing?
Okay, in answer to the first part, he sallallahu alaihi wasallam forbade drawing pictures, including of him, and perhaps more so of him, because of the veneration that could be attached to him, where it goes to extremes. He forbade drawing life forms, whether it's human or animal forms, and he cursed those who did that. And anybody who draws a human form, whether it's a messenger or anybody else after that, on the day of judgment, when they will raise the musawwirin, those who drew, or those who created forms, or drew forms, and it can apply to both, they'll be told, breathe life into it, because it's as if you're challenging the creative act of God Almighty. So they didn't do it because He forbade them from doing that. That's the first. The second, how can you have certainty? According to the overwhelming majority, because the direct statements the Prophet said, فَإِنَّ الشَّيْطَانَ لَا يَتَمَثَّلُ بِي. And because the Prophet said the shaitan can never take your form, whatever you feel in your dreams being the messenger is the messenger. It's as if Allah has given you a guarantee, about that. So we take that as yaqeen. If somebody has that, take it as a given that it's a messenger. That's
Quick question, following on from this, what would you recommend in terms of books or lecture series, lectures that we could do to learn more about the Messenger of Allah?
Read, if you want to read biography of the Messenger, read Martin Ling's Muhammad Rasulullah, which is based upon the original work of Sirah ibn Hisham. It's a compilation of the life of the Messenger, and although there's one or two errors in there, but generally it's probably the best that you have in English about the life of the Messenger. Also read the Shifa of Qadi Iyad. The Shifa of Qadi Iyad, because that's a work that will allow you to become the first one, Sirah, is known what his life as a narrative was. The second, the Shifa of Qadi Iyad is fi huquq al-Mustafa. That's what he tackles it. To know the rights that the Messenger has about you. To know his rank with Allah, his rights that he has over you. So read both of those two works in particular. During the talk you referred that Adam was pardoned since he gave the reference of Prophet ﷺ. Can you refer any other prophet who gave the same reference of Prophet ﷺ, especially in the case of Sayyidina Yunus a.s. Can you quote any reference from Qur'an where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned that I will not forgive you unless you give me the reference of Prophet ﷺ? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Qur'an, I am closer to you than your jugular vein to all of us. You call me and I, being so close to you, your comments please. Bear in mind that what we're saying here, when you say can you quote in the Qur'an, even that statement of Adam a.s. forgiveness is not mentioned in the Qur'an. It comes in hadith, mentioned in the Mustadrak, Imam Hakim and in other sources. Don't forget one thing, when people talk about this matter, the Qur'an is not the only source of revelation that we have. So when it says, can you give me in the Qur'an, you say, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَمَا يَنْطِقُ عَنِ الْهَوَىٰ إِنْ هُوَ إِلَّا وَحْيٌ يُوحَىٰ. He does not speak from his own desires. So whatever words he spoke about his revelation. So we ask, look in the Qur'an as well as in the Sunnah of the Prophet. Undoubtedly, there is nowhere. Now, what we did not say is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala cannot forgive you if you don't ask through the messenger. The karam of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is absolute. Whether the messenger or not, it's only because the messenger is beloved to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He said that if you mention him, that he will answer you. And that's why in the hadith in Tirmidhi, it mentions that a person who makes a dua without beginning and ending with sending blessings upon the Prophet will rise and will hand and it will not ascend to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It will rise and it will hand and it will not ascend to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So what's that now telling you? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala could have accepted dua from you. He could have accepted any dua from you, but if you don't connect it to the Messenger, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that He won't accept it from you. He won't accept it from you. It's within the power of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to accept anything. You make dua directly, as the question makes, you make dua directly to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He will answer you. He will answer you. But if you ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and mention His Habib sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, He will answer you. And the reality is that He's more likely to answer you. And in answer to that, can you quote any reference from the Qur'an? The reference to the Qur'an is مَا يَنْطِقُ عَنِ الْهَوَىٰ. He does not speak from his own desire. So we refer to that statement to the Messenger sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. What did he say? In the hadith in Tirmidhi, Sayyidina Uthman ibn Hanif al-Darir, blind Sahabi comes to the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Blind Sahabi comes to the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam and to ask the Prophet, pray for my blindness to be cured. He says, it's better if you be patient. But he's insisting, pray for me that my blindness be cured. So he teaches them a dua. Dua al-haja. This is a prayer of salat al-haja. Allahumma inni atawajjahu ilayka bi nabiyyika nabiy ar-rahmah. Allah, I turn to you through your prophet, the prophet of mercy. This is an authenticated hadith in Sahih Tirmidhi. Allah, I turn to you through your prophet, the prophet of mercy. Ya Muhammad. Then you say, and this is what the Prophet taught the Sahabi. Say, oh Muhammad, ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on my behalf to forgive me. And then you say, oh Allah, forgive me, or grant him intercession on my behalf. Here the Prophet taught the Sahabi to ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala through the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. You can ask either way. And the asl, the original way is to ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala directly. But if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling you go through the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, it does not contradict anything about our belief. Rather the belief is what? That whether you ask through the Messenger or Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it's all coming from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. No Muslim ever confuses that. You say, oh Allah, because of your love for the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, forgive me. As our father Adam alayhi salam said, you say, how does that happen? It's because of the power of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's because well, why did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tell you could do that? Because of the status of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. There's no contradiction in belief. Somebody's going to come and say, what about Iyaka nasta'een? That we only ask him? We say we only ask him. But when he's told you can ask me through the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, we're still asking only him subhanahu wa ta'ala. So there's no contradiction whatsoever in that. There are no other prophets mentioned in the Qur'an, but Adam alayhi wasn't mentioned in the Qur'an. That comes from a hadith. Within a hadith we have confirmed what's mentioned. Wallahu a'lam.
There's another question, inshallah. Did the Sahabas celebrate Milad? And is there any evidence for this, inshallah?
Did the Sahaba celebrate Milad? First thing is, what do you define as Milad? What do you define as Milad? You're talking about a gathering where they get together to remember as we have it now? No. That happened many centuries later. Many centuries later. What's the evidence for it? So what's the essence of what Milad is about? The essence of it is that mentioned in the Qur'an that we mentioned. فَبِذَلِكَ فَلْيَفْرَحُوا. Those people who gathered together to mention the Messenger. We spoke about the evidence. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala already told you to rejoice. Did the Sahaba ever do that? They never stopped rejoicing about the Messenger. They would always fi dhikra Rasulillah. They always remember the Messenger, such that they did not need to have a day where they gathered together. There was never a day where they weren't remembering the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So to say this contradicts the Salaf. Say, look at what the core of the Milad is about. The core of the Milad is to rejoice in the Messenger, and you've been ordered in the Qur'an to do that. The method doesn't matter. So when people gather together and sing praise to the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, we say, we have Sayyidina Hassan ibn Thabit in the presence of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He said, خُلِقْتَ مُبَرَّأً مِنْ كُلِّ عَيْبٍ كَأَنَّكَ قَدْ خُلِقْتَ كَمَا تَشَاءُ فَأَجْمَلَ مِنْكَ لَمْ تَرَ قَطُّ عَيْنِي وَأَفْضَلَ مِنْكَ لَمْ تَلِدِ النِّسَاءُ. In the presence of the Prophet we sing and praise about the perfection of the Messenger. So that's all that's happening there. So we have that from. We have Ka'b ibn Zuhair. Those who study Arabic, one of the greatest poems. There's a poem that's known as Banat Su'ad. Banat Su'ad. Ka'b ibn Zuhair is a war criminal. Fath Mecca, 4 people the Prophet said, even if they're clinging onto the kiswa, even if they're clinging onto the cloth of the Kaaba, kill them. 4 people, because the extremes that they went in opposition to the Messenger. One of them is Ka'b ibn Zuhair. He's a war criminal who's been hunted now by the Sahaba. He flees. Eventually his family come and beseech the Messenger to forgive him and pardon him, and he agrees. So he comes back in disguise. And then he stands in front of the Prophet and he composes a poem about the Prophet, a 30-line poem. And when he gets to the line, the Prophet is sitting there listening. People are praising the Prophet, singing poetry about the Prophet in the presence of the Messenger. So that's all that happens in the Milad. Nothing different to what the Sahaba were doing in the presence of the Prophet. When he gets to the line, أَنْتَ نُورُ اللَّهِ أَنْتَ نُورٌ يُفْتَضَاءُ بِهِ سَيْفٌ مِّن سُيُوفِ اللَّهِ الْمُهَنَّدِ. That you are a light that we take guidance from. An unsheathed sword of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's how we describe the Prophet. Prophet stands up, and that's why the people at the Milad stand up. Because the Prophet stood up at the point of praise, when the praise reached culmination. And what did he do? He took off his shawl and he wrapped it around the Sahabi. Ka'b, or who was to become a Sahabi, Ka'b ibn Zuhair. So we have Sayyidina Abbas, Al-Abbas, comes in the Hadith of Al-Tabarani. He asked permission for the Prophet to stand in front of him and praise him. And he sings a long poem about the Prophet, a long, lengthy poem in the presence of the Messenger. So anybody says there's no basis to the Milad, we say it happened in the present. But if you're talking about the way that happens now, say forms don't matter. Do whatever you want. Sit at home and read Seerah. Do whatever you want. The point is that you rejoice about the Messenger. That's the asl. And that's why some of our teachers, they said, there are people who come to the Milad, they're distant from the Messenger. Because they're all just obsessed by the form. But they have no real rejoicement in their hearts. There are people who never come, but they're connected to the Messenger. The asl, the important thing is we have the order in the Qur'an, فَبِذَلِكَ فَلْيَفْرَحُوا. Rejoice in the Messenger, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And then to understand an important concept, because the question asked me about it being, what's the evidence for it? We have a misunderstanding which is widespread in the Sunnah. Because the probability is people are expecting, give me a hadith. Give me a hadith that the Prophet ﷺ did it, and if you can't prove it, then you can't do it. See, that's false logic. That's false logic. What's the idea of a bid'ah? What's the idea of an innovation? We have practices after the Prophet ﷺ passed away that the Ummah considered to be good. Practices after the Prophet ﷺ passed away that the Ummah considered to be good. That didn't contradict the ethos of what Sharia is about. We have the statement to the Prophet ﷺ where he said, وَمَا نَهَيْتُكُمْ عَنْهُ فَاجْتَنِبُوهُ. So وَمَا أَمَرْتُكُمْ بِهِ فَأْتُوا بِهِ مَا اسْتَطَعْتُمْ. Whatever I've ordered you to do as much of it as you can. But whatever I've forbidden you from doing, avoid it. He ﷺ did not say whatever I did not do, avoid it. So people now saying, if you can't prove that he did it, we have adillah that Sahaba praise the Prophet in his presence. That's all we do. We said even if we didn't have that, did he tell you can't do it? Did he tell you can't do it? Only if you can prove that it's prohibited, then you can say it's wrong. Only if you can prove it's prohibited. Because he said, مَا نَهَيْتُكُمْ عَنْهُ فَاجْتَنِبُوهُ. Whatever I forbade you from, avoid it. We have a qa'idah that's appeared in this ummah that's not from this ummah. And that's why we say, الترك لا يدل على التحريم. That's a qa'idah fiqhiyya, a rule in law, that not doing something does not indicate it's haram. Not doing something does not indicate it's haram. The fact that the Prophet ﷺ didn't do it doesn't mean you can't do it. When can you not do it? When he ﷺ told you can't do it. That's when you cannot do it. And anybody who understands Sharia, who studies Sharia in its entirety will understand that. It's only people who look at it superficially. Only people who look at it superficially. There were acts that took place in the time of the Messenger ﷺ that Sahaba did without asking the Messenger ﷺ. We have a hadith where the Prophet ﷺ بَعَثَ رَجُلًا عَلَى سَرِيَّةٍ. He appointed a Sahabi to lead an expedition. And when they come back, the Sahaba say to the Prophet ﷺ that he did something that was strange. That after every rak'ah, after reading Fatiha and Surah, he would do Surah Al-Ikhlas. Every rak'ah, without exception, he would do Surah Al-Ikhlas. So that's a bid'ah that he did. Because he didn't have an instruction from the Messenger. He didn't have an instruction from the Messenger to do it. Just from his own dhawq, he did it. Just from himself, he did it. And why did he do it? Prophet ﷺ asked him what inspired him to do that. He said, لأن فيها الرحمن لأن فيها صفة الرحمن وأنا أحب أن أذكرها. He said because it contains a description of the beneficent one, and I love to mention it. What was his motivation behind doing this? Because I just love to speak about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So we say we love to speak about the Messenger. We love to speak about the Messenger, so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speaks about him. Prophet ﷺ said because of that love he's granted Jannah. We have Sayyidina Abu Bakr as-Siddiq and Sayyidina Umar. When the Prophet ﷺ passed away, the Qur'an was not in one complete book. It was not in one complete book, it was scattered. The whole Qur'an was recorded, but not in one book. The whole Qur'an was recorded, but not in one book. When in the Battle of Yamama, over 70 Huffaz are martyred, Sayyidina Umar becomes concerned, and he comes to Sayyidina Abu Bakr as-Siddiq and says, we should compile the Qur'an together in one book. In one book. Abu Bakr says, how can I do that which the Messenger never did? And he works on the asl. He didn't do it, then I shouldn't do it. But remember, Sahaba, even in matters that are not connected to religion, they would avoid anything the Messenger didn't do. And there was some of them shadida tamassuk bin Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Some Sahabi was riding on his beast, and he just suddenly swerved and turned around, and then carried on. They asked him, why did you do that? He said, in the time of the Messenger there was a rock here, and the Prophet went round, so I'm going round as well. There was no rock there. There was no rock there. Some were absolute in their following the Messenger, and that was how Abu Bakr as-Siddiq, what Umar explained to him, and said to him, key words here, He said, Wallahi innahu la khayr. Wallahi innahu la khayr. He said, by God, it is good. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells you in the Qur'an, وَفَعَلُوا الْخَيْرَ لَعَلَّكُمْ تُفْلِحُونَ. To do good deeds. So we said, whatever is good and does not contravene Sharia, as Sayyidina Umar says, we will do it. And you can't tell us we're wrong in doing it. So he said, speaking about the message, it doesn't contravene anything about the Sharia. It's absolutely from the asl of the Sharia. So even if we couldn't prove it, we said, Wallahi innahu la khayr. We say, by God, it is good, but we say we can prove it. And if you don't agree with that, then take your own way. There's no issue with it. We can have ikhtilaf on these matters, even within Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah. Even the Imams of the Orthodox way, of the Orthodox Madhab, there's not an ittifaq, there's not an agreement about celebrating the Mawlid. It's not something that's considered essential. But what we say, what is essential? فَبِذَلِكَ فَلْيَفْرَحُوا. Rejoice in the Messenger, feel happy that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent him to you.
Just a question about why the khatam of the Prophet ﷺ, even in the Shama'il, the sifat of his description.
Why doesn't it finish with that?
No, why isn't it under the sections of, why is it normally mentioned with the description of his physical description?
Which mean the Khatm al-Nubuwwah?
Yeah, on his back.
No, it comes immediately after. Maybe, I think it's about 3 sections after the first one. But here it's as if Imam Tirmidhi rahimahullah separates it out because of the significance of Khatm al-Nubuwwah. Although and in some of the riwayats in the first one, it does actually speak about that he had Khatam al-Nubuwwah. I think the riwayat Sayyidina Ali ibn Anhu, when he describes the long description, he mentions that he had Khatam al-Nubuwwah there. So some of them did mention it within the section of the Khalq, but it's as if he mentioned it separately, just to highlight the significance of the Khatam al-Nubuwwah. Bear in mind that the Khatam al-Nubuwwah was specifically for the Christians and the Jews, it's for Ahl al-Kitab, because they had this description about the Prophet that he would have this piece of flesh and on his left shoulder blade. They have that description. It wasn't the Arabs that it was really directed to, because they didn't have scriptures that came before. So that was directed more towards the Christian and Jews. Yes?
What is the proper ratio when someone humiliates Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam?
When somebody what?
Humiliate, like they humiliate Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and his sunnah. Like someone
who's Muslim or not Muslim?
Yeah, either way.
If he's not Muslim, if somebody who's not a Muslim insults the Prophet, the son of the Prophet, it's wajib upon you to defend him. It's an obligation upon you to defend him. As we mentioned, more so than defense of yourself or your parents. And if you can't do it, just turn away. Just turn away, because you have no authority beyond them. No. If it was a Muslim state, it's a different discussion totally. But you're not in a Muslim state. If it's a Muslim state, completely different discussion. In terms of what happens to someone who's not a Muslim insults the Messenger. As opposed to a Muslim, if it insults the Messenger to a point where, not that just that he lessens, but it's to a point where he humiliates the Sunnah or the Prophet, it's considered to be kufr. That takes him out of the middle. And with Sayyidina Imam Malik rahimahullah and Sayyidina Imam Ahmed, 2 out of the 4 orthodox madhab, he cannot come back into Islam. He cannot ridda, which is caused by insulting the Messenger, according to Imam Malik and according to Imam Ahmed, he's put to death. There's no further discussion. Even if he makes tawbah, that's between him and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Yawm al-Qiyamah. So in terms of, and if somebody insults the Messenger, and just to add, if it's a non-Muslim in a Muslim country, and I studied the Hanafi madhab, the muta'akhirin, the madhab, the latest scholars in the Hanafi madhab said even a non-Muslim is put to death if he insults the Messenger in Muslim lands. Even a non-Muslim, although the mutaqaddimin, the early scholars in the Hanafi madhab said he wasn't, the later scholars said he was put to death, and non-Muslims who insults the Messenger in Muslim lands. Wallahu a'lam.
So last question for the audience, if any.
You mentioned about the Milad and difference of opinion among the people, and you said like the people who look at it superficially, they get the idea like there is no Milad. What's your comments about the muhaddisin like Sheikh Albani and the people like him who say anything about the religion if it doesn't come from the Prophet peace be upon him or his Sahabas? is not acceptable, it's a bid'ah.
Well, yeah, we just answered that already. You say that principle, completely disagree with that principle.
But that is about the Sahaba. It was still the Sahaba
Yeah,
who were doing. But
let me
after
give you a
the Sahaba-
principle. Let me give you a principle to answer that. Completely disagree with that idea. The reason why. What was the last ayah that was revealed in the Qur'an? The very last ayah that was revealed. Everybody knows the first. What's the very last ayah that's revealed in the Qur'an? The very last ayah revealed in the Qur'an is in Surah Al-Baqarah. وَاتَّقُوا يَوْمًا تُرْجَعُونَ فِيهِ إِلَى اللَّهِ ثُمَّ تُوَفَّى كُلُّ نَفْسٍ مَا كَسَبَتْ وَهُمْ لَا يُظْلَمُونَ. Surah Baqarah verse 281. Surah Baqarah verse 281. What ties in? That section, that page of the Qur'an which was revealed together is ayat tahrim al-riba. They are verses that deal with the prohibition of interest, which is ayat al-ahkam, legal rulings. We also have another verse, اليوم أكملت لكم دينكم وأتممت عليكم نعمتي ورضيت لكم الإسلام دينا. But today I perfected for you religion. I've completed my favor upon you, and I've chosen Islam as my religion. So now, what's going to be said is that if you introduce practices like this, it's as if you're saying that the religion is incomplete. When was this ayah revealed? اليوم أكملت لكم دينكم. It was revealed the 9th of Dhul Hijjah, Yawm Arafah, Hajjat al-Wada'. When did that take place? 2.5 months before the Prophet ﷺ passed away. The last verse, ayat tahrim al-riba, when's that revealed? A week before the Prophet ﷺ passes away. So if you look now at tartib of the nuzul al-ayah, the sequence of the ayah, what's that telling you? If you're now saying there's no ahkam that comes after, you cannot have any rules that comes after the verse, al-yawma akmaltu lakum dinakum, we have ahkam that come after it. We have confirmed ahkam that come after it. What does that show you? That this ayah, al-yawma akmaltu lakum dinakum, I've completed your religion, and so therefore, and somebody's going to say you can't introduce anything else because you're contradicting the Qur'an, you're contradicting the Sunnah. You say, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed after the ayat of ahkam. He revealed after the ayat of ahkam. So what's this ayah telling you? The system is complete, not necessarily the details. It doesn't close off the possibility of details. That's why we say, what does it mean? A bid'ah, sayyi'ah, makruha. What's a foul, reprehensible bid'ah? It's something that contravenes the order of the messenger, a direct statement to the messenger, or it contravenes a direct order of the Qur'an, and we don't have that in relation to this. So those people now who say that if the Prophet didn't do it, you can't do it, or if the Qur'an doesn't say you can't do it, we say it contradicts the tartib and nuzul, the sequence of revelation. After the ayah, we say religion is complete. There's more religion coming down. There's more religion coming down. There's ayat tahrim al-riba. So what does that tell you? The completion is in the system, the qawa'id, the usus, the foundations. The system is complete. But as for details, the Prophet said, "Man sanna sunnatan hasanatan, falahu ajraha wa ajru man amila biha." Whoever introduces a good practice has its reward and the reward of all of those who practice it. So Shaykh Nasruddin Albani and anybody who takes that opinion, say that's their opinion. But the Imams of the Orthodox Madhabs don't agree with that. Don't agree. That's their opinion. And as long as they hold their opinion to themselves and don't start condemning people, that's their opinion. And people only condemn them if they condemn. But there should be, even those who don't agree with the Orthodox Madahib of Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah, they would say, provided you don't insult, provided you don't belittle the practices of people who have a dalil for what they're doing. You have your way, you have your understanding, we have our understanding. But if you now start insulting, then so we'll come and deal with that with hujjah, we'll come and deal with that with evidences, because the evidences are clear. Wallahu a'lam.
Last question from the question.
What about people who do marches in the street in the name of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam? So here again, the form is not the issue. Like people saying about gathering together, they go and march and express their happiness. So the form is not the issue. Do whatever you want, as long as there's real rejoicement to the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. As long as there's real rejoicement, the form is not the issue. If you stay at home all night long and you do 100,000 salawat upon the Prophet, that's completely different to what many people do. Do that. Do that, feel happy about the Messenger. So if people want to go out on the streets and express their happiness to the Messenger, that's another way of فَبِذَلِكَ فَلْيَفْرَحُوا. And in that way, they should rejoice. So forms on the issue. We're getting too tied up here in the forms, in the manner, in the method it takes place. What we should look at is the asl. Does it have a basis within Qur'an and Sunnah? And we say it has a clear basis in the Qur'an and Sunnah. And that's why I mentioned again before, Shaykh al-Islam ibn Hajar al-Asqalani, when he spoke about the hadith, لِأَنِّي وُلِدْتُ فِيهِ, he said this is the strongest dalil of the ability to celebrate, because fasting is one form of rejoicing in the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Fasting, and that's why people should increase in their fasting in this month. People should fast a lot in this month. Because he sallallahu alaihi wasallam told you to fast because I was born on the Monday. So he said this is a month in which he was born. So fast in this month. Express your happiness to the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Don't just have a lot of Milad gathering where food increases more and more food. Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, give up food to rejoice about me. Give up food to rejoice about me. So if people want to go out and express it verbally, let them do that. Let them do. Don't condemn. That happens in many of the lands of Islam, and in all of the lands in every Muslim country except for 2, it's a national holiday. The day that he sallallahu alaihi wasallam was born. Every single Muslim country except for 2, it's a national holiday the day he sallallahu alaihi wasallam was born. So we should all rejoice in that. Alhamdulillah.